Beyond the shocking death toll, the terrible measure of the opioid crisis includes the families ripped apart and, for many communities, a generation of lost potential and opportunity.
In late October, President Trump declared a public health emergency to combat America's drug crisis. Among other things, Trump's declaration directs federal agencies to provide more money to fight the epidemic. Drug overdoses are now the leading cause of death among Americans under age 50. Public health experts estimate that the epidemic could kill more than 500,000 people over the next decade. We recently drove 2 hours west from Washington, D.C. to Grant County on West Virginia's eastern panhandle. West Virginia is often referred to as ground zero of the opioid epidemic. Its overdose rate is double the national average, and by far the highest of any state. Grant County and its only city, Petersburg, have been hard hit by the drug epidemic. Judy's Pharmacy on Main Street was sued last year by the state's attorney general for selling too many prescription painkillers. The lawsuit alleges that over a 6-year period, the drugstore sold more than 1.8 million doses of addictive opioids that had no medical purpose. A few steps from Judy's, we met Brenda Sams, a recovering drug addict who works at Dairy Queen.
How are you? Good to see you.
Accompanied by her parents, Brenda told us about her struggles with addiction to prescription pain pills.
As soon as I took my first pill, it was like for the first time in my entire life, I was just comfortable with me. You know, I was comfortable in my own skin, and I was happy with myself for the first time in my life. I got all the way up to 180 oxycodone 30s a month, 90 Dilaudid, 8 milligrams a month, and 90 Oxycontin 80s a month. And I would get those every single month.
When the pain pills ran out, Brenda turned to heroin.
Nothing in this world could compete to heroin. You know, not my family, not my friends. I had an addiction with a needle just as much as I did the pills. I would shoot up ice water just to see the blood flow in the needle in the process. And when they caught me finally, I was shooting up 2 grams of heroin a day. I was down to 95 pounds, and, you know, I was bad off.
After being convicted of conspiracy to distribute drugs and going to prison, Brenda got clean, earned her GED, and started going to church.
I asked God to I surrendered myself, and, you know, I asked God. I knew I couldn't do it without him because I tried it for 10 years and it never worked. So I prayed to God and gave myself to him, and got out, and I was probably out of prison, a month, got a job, and I've worked that job ever since.
How bad is the problem here in Grant County?
It's terrible. If it's not meth or heroin, it's Suboxone and pain pills, and I mean, you want it, you got it. It's terrible. Even for the kids, you know, they're on Adderall or 5-Ants or whatever, you know, ADHD medicine you know, it's sad, it's sick.
Later, driving around Petersburg, Brenda showed us some of her old haunts, including the house where she tried heroin for the first time and the place where she caught her federal charge.
This area here this is a terrible area. This is where most of the drugs in Grant County is, well, Petersburg. This house here, you know, it's always had a bad name with drugs. The apartment building, heroin, meth, stuff like that. It's one person after another one coming out of it. You could probably get...
This one right here?
Yeah, I can't say anything you wanted, but pills, heroin, or meth on any street that you walk down in this field. My mom and dad live right down here, and when I moved back from Maryland, I moved back in with them and I was clean. And then, like I said, I walked one street over one night, and that's the first time I ever did heroin, and that's where my life started to really end.
Later that day, we met with Brian Ward, sheriff of nearby Hardy County, who told us he doesn't know a family in the county that hasn't been directly affected by the drug epidemic.
I would say 95% of property crimes, burglaries, B&Es, grand larcenies, fraud, any type of crime involving currency or things of value are drug related, because the majority, with very few exceptions, of the people that are committing those types of crimes are committing those crimes to further their drug addictions. You know, there seems to be a diminished family influence on instilling the values of what is a good path to follow and what's not. The decay of the nuclear family is, you know, in large part perpetuating some of the problems that we have with the kids that are more apt to take the drugs. Law enforcement will never be able to arrest our way out of the problem because there's a never-ending supply of people who are going to go that path. Back in the 70s, when I was a kid, everybody knew the names of certain things, and you might have a group that might smoke pot, but if somebody came up with a needle in their hand while a bunch of pot smokers were getting high, they would have all ran because there were certain types of drugs, or whether it be whether it's in a powder or in a syringe, that were no-nos. The problem is now the kids, a lot of times they'll be using something and they don't even know exactly what it is, and the sad reality is they don't care what it is.
We also met with Cindy Corbin, Executive Director of Hampshire County Pathways, a recovery center for people with substance abuse and mental health disorders. Corbin's organization used to place someone in treatment every other month. Now they place at least 12 or 13 people a month.
What do you think is at the root of the drug epidemic here in West Virginia?
I think it's overprescribing. I think it's people not being educated, people thinking that, oh, if a doctor prescribes it, we can take it, and not understanding that it is a drug. And if you're not taking it as prescribed, then you are abusing it. But I also think that there's a lot of other things. I've had some kids tell me that, they just want to escape. And I know that we have a high percentage of kids being raised by grandparents and people other than their parents because of this epidemic. So it's like it's becoming generational now.
Is there something the Trump administration can do, the federal government?
I believe there is. I feel like peer-run organizations like ours who serve the entire region, that there needs to be more of them. And I believe that we're the grassroots of helping people in addiction. I also know that the funding that we receive, the grant funding that we receive, is not enough for us to properly keep employees. It's sad when I and others who run recovery houses and peer centers, when we're afraid that we're going to lose our employees to Sheetz, because Sheetz pays better and they have insurance.
Your clean date is something that you hold dear. It's your one thing that nobody can take from you, only you can take that from you. So your clean date is very important to a recovering addict. Mine is August 29, 2014. This right here is my 3 years. 3 years of sobriety. This is my 2 years.
Brenda recently began working as a recovery coach at Pathways. She understands the crucial role that her parents' love and support are playing in her recovery.
They made it a lot easier for me because that was my comfort zone. I always knew that no matter what, at the end of the day, I had them.
And now we got her back. She got a job, a place of her own, and we can't tell her enough that we love her, and we are so very, very proud of her.
The question is, how will the hundreds of thousands of others who don't have that support in Petersburg and across the country rise above the epidemic, avert death, and find the help they need?